everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Daisy Jones and the Six Rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Donut. It's another way to say Carpe Diem. And it's all about going after the things that you want in life. And actually, something I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Daisy Jones and the Six, but this time talk about it with other people. So today we're going to have a very exciting interview with an important member of the crew. But before I introduce her, who you can already see on screen, one quick housekeeping item. If you are brand new to the show Daisy Jones and the Six, these interviews could have spoilers in them. We could mention any detail from any episode of this show. So just know that up front. If you're looking for spoiler-free coverage, check out the deep dives of the episode recaps because those are going to be spoiler-free up until the episode you're on. But this one, if you haven't seen the show before and you want to watch this, just watch it real quick. Come and then come right back to this because we have a very exciting conversation coming up here with Denise Wingate, who is the costume designer for Daisy Jones and the Six. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk with you. I just, I guess to be transparent up front, I think anybody who's watched the deep dives of the episodes would know that my language for costuming is not like very strong. So I underrepresented the work that you did as I was going through the episodes. But this is a great chance for us to catch up and really get more of a foundation of the work that you did on the show. And before we do that, I'd love to start where I usually start with these and ask, how did you get connected to the show to begin with?
I had worked with one of our producers, Mike Nelson, before on a really small movie, and we got along great. And he had called me. I was doing a movie in New Orleans and was kind of on hurricane lockdown or tornado lockdown and sequestered in my hotel. And he said, "I want you to read this book and let me know what you think." And I read it in one sitting. Literally, I did not. I don't even think I got up to go to the bathroom. I read the whole book, and I emailed him immediately and said, "What is going on with this? I have to do it." And so he said, "Okay, well, when you get back, we'll set up an interview with with Hello Sunshine and Amazon." So I took the whole time while I was working on that other movie to create this lookbook, which was basically a visual representation of the entire book. And so by the time I went in for my meeting, I was so prepared. I had done such a deep dive of research, and I think everyone was just a little bit blown away that I had thought about it so carefully. And I grew up in Los Angeles during this time. I was a little bit young, but I went to all the clubs, so I knew it so well that I just felt I could really tell the story through costumes, and I just had to do it. I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to get this movie. I knew it was for me.
Oh, amazing. And then you got it. For those of us who aren't as familiar with the industry, when you're the costume designer for a show like this, what does your job actually entail? What does that mean once you get the job?
Well, you have to go through, you have to come up with concepts and boards and ideas and I worked really closely with with Lauren Newstatter and everybody at Hello Sunshine. And of course, once the actors come in, they have their own opinion. But I did have such great boards that it was a great jumping off point, especially for the actors who were not from that period. So there were, they had really good ideas and great, and just great characters that I presented that they could kind of get their own ideas from. And then manage a whole department. I have a ton of people working for me, and we had the blessing, I have to say, of COVID, as horrible as it was, that it gave us a little more time and it gave me more time to really cull pieces and really curate a great look. And I went to flea markets every weekend, even during COVID, because it was outdoors. And I just shopped for stuff online, and I just really just took the time to do it right. And I worked really closely with our cinematographer and our production designer, who I loved, and to create a palette and a look.
I was gonna say, your job is so important to the look and feel of the show, as are some other departments. So, like, what members of the crew were you working with the most to try to create I guess, a consistency of tone?
I think it's sort of the top three of, well, actually, in this particular case, hair and makeup, really closely with hair and makeup, the production designer, and the set decorator for sure, because we want to make sure we're doing the same palettes and that it looks cohesive. And we had two cinematographers, one for the first block, who was Checo, and the second one, Jeff Cutter, for the second block. And they had two, different styles, but Checo kind of set the tone going forward. And I personally think he made all of my costumes look so much better than they did in real life. He was a genius. So I owe him a debt of gratitude for that.
Mm. One of the things that fascinates me about a show like this is just the volume of people. So you have a sizable main cast already, but then there's also a lot of background actors who are coming in, especially when we get to things like concert scenes. But we have concert venues that are even smaller in the beginning where we have people on in frame. Are you building closets for all of those people? What kind of volume are you dealing with in terms of outfitting for all the people that we see on screen?
Yeah, I mean, we had over 1,000 costumes, and sometimes you had time with people who were guest stars, and sometimes you would get them like a couple days before they worked. So again, I had very good representation of the idea of who the character was, but we had a lot of people. We had, like you said, like all throughout, tons of day players, people coming going, and it was I felt like it was doing a 10-hour movie, which it was. It was 10 episodes, and it was massive. And I usually don't do television. I usually do features, which is like a beginning, a middle, and an end. This was just like a beginning and a really long middle, and then an end. And we kind of shot in sequence. So it was a lot of people, a lot of people to keep track of, a lot of background. And we had quite a big, two big trailers full of clothes.
Oh my goodness. When you think about the time period, were there any particular looks or iconic figures that were your inspiration for any specific characters? I mean, a lot has been said of Stevie Nicks to Daisy Jones and sort of the relationship there, but how much inspiration were you taking from
But I
iconic
also
figures?
used other characters as well for my boards for Daisy, which was early Linda Ronstadt when she was a Stone Ponies. Definitely some early Joni Mitchell, Janis Joplin. I had a lot of different people for Suki, for Karen. I will try using character names. It was Susie Quattro, Joan Jett, Grace Slick, Patti Smith. Billy was only ever Bruce Springsteen. He was Bruce from the 70s all the way up until Bruce in the 90s. And because Bruce only ever wore like denim and leather jackets. So as Billy becomes more famous, his leather jackets just get cooler. But I did use, try to I made a jacket that was a copy of one that I had seen Bruce wear in the 70s. So I made one and then used some really great vintage leather jackets from that period. I mean, I just found so many great pieces. So, but we made a lot as well. I haven't had an amazing seamstress, this woman, Rosa Medina, who just killed it on every single outfit she made. And it was great.
Hmm. One of the things that I've been sort of tracking as I've been going through the episodes is the way the characters evolve. You start out in that first episode, they're unknown, they're still sort of figure developing their interest in music and developing their talent. And as you get further into the show, they hit big and they're like, going on tour, they're selling out stadiums. Naturally, those characters are going to evolve over that time. So, to what extent were you trying to reflect that in the costumes for them?
Well, when you see it as a band, like Fleetwood Mac is a good example because in the beginning they were a little rough and tumble, very, very casual, and then they got into more stage costumes. And so I think that that's where we went with especially with Daisy. And then the first time I saw Riley perform, they did it like this small showcase, and I'd only ever fit her in a fitting room where so it's like a paper doll. She's just standing there. And when I saw her perform and saw the way she was moving, and she was like a butterfly, and she was all over the stage, and she was either in cowboy boots or barefoot, and I was like, it just completely changed the way that I wanted the clothes to move. So then we went into a different direction, and that's what's great, and that's what's great about having the time to really find the character. It gave us time to really find the perfect outfits that worked really well. And some of those stage outfits I just loved. She just looked amazing in.
Yeah.
And,
As
and
we
and and so the guys too, like obviously then we have, Eddie wearing a white suit, which I took from Peter Frampton was wearing a white suit. Jeff Lynne from ELO was so I found Jimmy Page in a white suit. I found every picture of a white suit and made a board and just showed Josh and said, I think we should do a white suit.
You may be answering this in some of the inspiration for these, characters that you're sharing, but I'm really curious, especially with the women. This is such a women-centered show, um, that, and it feels like every woman we see on screen is so distinct from each other. And I think that has to go down to what they're wearing. I mean, it's everything about them. So what guidelines did you have for yourself when you thought about differentiating characters like Daisy and Camilla and Karen and Simone?
It's interesting though, because I did so much research. So I compartmentalized. So every time I saw a picture of somebody who looked really interesting, I would put that in a folder. And, for Camilla, she had an arc as well. So she was sort of young Ally McGraw in Love Story in the beginning. And then we morphed into Bianca Jagger when she was married to Mick Jagger. So there were morphs, and I had different characters were for inspiration for block one and block two. So they really morphed. And for Simone, a lot of the early, background singers, and then we morphed into disco, and there were just so many great people that maybe I had never even heard of. And I just love doing these deep dives. And I bought tons of books. I mean, not only can you do a lot of research on the internet, but I had old 70s magazines and 70s books and all through the music industry. I mean, my office was just filled with boards and books, and people used to love to come into my office, and I would just blare 70s music all day long. And even in the fittings, I was just completely immersed.
Oh my goodness. And just so it's been said, people loved it because when I stop recording all of these interviews, everybody has said, have you talked to Denise yet? Every single human. So they loved the experience of working with you, and maybe this is the experience they had, right?
Maybe I made it fun. I mean, I was having so much fun that I just wanted everybody else to be having as much fun as I had. And honestly, some of the best fittings were with Tom Wright, who played Teddy, because I was just playing some great like Motown, and every outfit on him looked so great. He was my spirit animal. I loved him so much.
Let's get into that a little bit more because I think Teddy is sort of he's a legend, but he's in a class of his own in this show. Like there's nobody else anywhere close to being like Teddy in this show. Talk to us about his closet. What were you going for there?
Well, again, again just finding these great images and putting it together, and he is, like you said, every single character is super distinct. And I really love the idea of Quincy Jones and having that sort of who was cool, so cool. He had his own sense of style. So there were like, again, Teddy had his own board, and his board was very similar to what he was wearing. But I think what I love about my job more than anything is doing the research. I love researching. I just love researching. That's the most fun of the job, and coming up with ideas and coming up with characters, and really I just love it. It's like going to school and really doing a deep dive on a subject. And that's why I love movies. Every movie's different. Every movie's different. And you learn something new.
Hmm. As you do this research, we talked a little bit about the distinctive women in this show, but you have a band full of guys as well. We already know Billy likes a denim outfit. Okay, that much we know. But in terms of the other guys in the band, in what ways were you attempting to make them feel distinct? I mean, we learned some things that make them feel different from each other in the show, like we see that Graham takes up surfing. We see, Warren now is gonna he gets a boat at some point in the course of the show. Like there are just certain things about them that we start to like sort of have angles for their characters to go off into. When you were doing your research, how much of that was defined?
Well, I mean, I found that in doing research with drummers, that a lot of them wore vests because they could move. And so that to me, I was like, okay, so we needed, and finding pictures of, Santana and Mick Fleetwood certainly always wore a vest with sort of a tie. And there were just a lot of drummers with vests. So that was kind of our jumping off point with him. But then also Sebastian had his own ideas that maybe he had like, he would pick up talismans wherever they went on the road. So he had a lot of accessories. And that's why I'm saying like the actors bring their own ideas to the characters. What I present to them is just a starting point and saying, this is what I've found that all of these drummers from the 70s, a lot of them were wearing vests. And then great. So then we go from there and then we find out like what and you just kind of move on. I think for Graham, he was a little more grounded because he was from Philly. So sort of like Billy was Bruce Springsteen. I kind of went more towards the Eagles, which is just like a real grounded band because that's who Graham felt like to me. And so we kind of had a lot of boards like that. Like I said, everybody was different. Everybody had their own, or what I thought was their own board. And then they could just go from there. And then obviously our fittings were massive. We had huge fittings and they were hours and hours long. So we would build closets and throw stuff out and, just to go from there.
One of the things that I remarked on many times in the deep dives was that sometimes when Daisy is fired up about something, she walks with purpose to get somewhere. But usually when that happens, she's wearing something that has really big sleeves. So her arms have to physically go sideways. And it made
That's so
me
funny.
think like, and I don't know if that's like a thing where you put on the outfit and it changes the walk, or if she had made a choice like that. So it made me wonder, were there any pieces, especially when you did these fittings, were there any pieces that as soon as the actor stepped into that, it was like a pivotal moment in defining the character? Was there anything like that that came up for you?
Well, I feel like anytime you're doing a fitting, that's where the actors find the character. And it sometimes it takes a while. It's like peeling an onion, like and you get deeper into the character and you find out what works and what doesn't work. I feel like our initial fittings with Daisy with Riley before we went on COVID hiatus the look changed completely to when we got back because we were talking all the time, we were sharing pictures, it just gave us time. It gave her time to think about it. And as the band was practicing, they became more like their characters. So it was a gift of time to be sure. Um, but that's how you really, and again, the shoes too. But we did use coats a lot when she was trying to use like protective armor, like emotional armor. So that was a very big decision. Besides the fact that she looked great in coats, and that kind of became a little bit of a signature. But she felt very comfortable for as much as she was sort of showing her body, then she could cover it up whenever she felt like she needed that protection.
Oh, what a beautiful detail. I'm really interested to explore Simone more because Simone is almost, her character is almost a spin-off within the show. Like it just is embedded right into the show. She has a really specific journey of finding her voice and getting comfortable to use it. She moves as an artist, she's finding that voice, but then she moves coast to coast. She's defining herself as a queer woman. I mean, there's so many elements of what that character brings to the show that are not being explored by other characters. So, how did you reflect her journey through costume?
She definitely had an arc. From the first time we saw her singing, did we see her singing at the Troubadour? I felt like, I mean, I've seen her sing so many times,
We
but
did for a moment.
yeah, so,
Mhm.
and into going in, finding herself, finding her voice, going into the clubs, the underground clubs, becoming like a big disco star. And again, that was research. Oddly enough, there is not a lot of visual research on the underground gay clubs of that time because it really was like verboten. So you can't find a lot of documentation, which I found really interesting because the rock and roll scene in the 70s is like you can find so much of it. So I found that a little bit interesting, especially in the day and age we live in now, that there was just no documentation. It was really kind of underground. And disco was, I mean, you see that then they're catering to the straight people at the clubs. But there was a lot of disco was really, really, disco itself was big, not the underground gay clubs, but the disco clubs were very big. So there was a lot of documentation of that. So we did find a lot of outfits that we Chaka Khan was a huge, huge influence. So we made a couple outfits that I had seen Chaka Khan wearing. One was like a leather with beads and feathers, leather pants that tied up the sides. So again, Rosa, my seamstress, we made that and she did a great job. So um, yeah, we just, whatever looked cool, we either made or found a facsimile of.
Hmm. One episode that's well, okay, if we talk about like sort of killer looks for Daisy and important moments in the story between Daisy and Billy, I wanted to chart out some of the stuff that we're seeing in episode 5, which is when Daisy and Billy write a song together for the first time, and we're in Teddy's house for most of their scenes. Or by the time we get there, we just stay there for a while. And yet Daisy somehow continues to have outfit changes.
Go figure.
So, she comes in with one outfit at the start. She strips down to swim. She puts on this beautiful, I don't know, it's like a burgundy colored button-down shirt, probably
One of Teddy's
from
shirts.
was it Teddy's or yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So it's interesting to me to see her clothing evolve as the episode goes on, but I also feel like we're simultaneously tracking an evolution of the Daisy Billy relationship. And I feel by the end of this episode, Billy's falling in love with her. So I think we need to fall in love with her on screen too in this episode. So when you have a task like that, how are you approaching this in terms of, okay, she's going to have some different looks, but somehow it needs to make her like more endearing to us?
Well, I'll be very honest that, and I can't remember if it was the book. Tara Jenkins Reid's book was very, very, very specific about certain outfits. I can't remember if that was in the book or in the script, but it actually says she is wearing a pair of cutoff shorts and she is in a tank top and she strips down and she grabs one of Teddy's shirts. And it may even have said one of Teddy's red shirts. I don't know. So, or that might have been the director's request, but there were very, very, very specific things that were written that we stayed true to. But for me, the things that were in the book, I don't know if you read the book or not.
I
But
did.
I wanted to stay very, very true to the book because I knew the fans were expecting it. And I knew I did not want to disappoint the fans because I was a fan of the book. And I knew that there were things I would be expecting, which is like, the big hoop earrings and the intricately beaded caftan at the Chateau Marmont that she goes into the pool in. I mean, that was so specific and it was so written. Like I couldn't have her in just like some boring old outfit. Like,
Let's talk about that caftan. Episode 6, whatever gets you through the night, we get a gorgeous overhead shot of her after she's jumped in. Well, she sort of jumps, she sort of just plops into the pool. And then we get this overhead shot of her floating on her back with this caftan just like spread out around her. It's a beautiful shot. It's a beautiful outfit. And how did this come together? What came first? It sounds like you were aiming for matching a look in the book. Um,
yes. But I also we needed multiples because she goes in the water. So we needed one wet, we needed one dry, we needed an extra as a backup, and the first fall in the water didn't work, so we had to do it again. It was also freezing that night, which was not fun, and it was really late at night. Um, but so what I found, I had a board of caftans, and I found a Halston one. I think it says Halston in the book. I found a really beautiful Halston one that looked like it. I found some vintage sheer fabric. My amazing seamstress Rosa built three of them and hand beaded all the gold beadwork on it. And yeah, so it was again, that was a long, but I had started prepping that like early on because I knew I wanted it to be great. So we had a lot of variations of it and we did quite a few fittings, but I loved that piece. It was really beautiful.
I mean, it's a standout moment in the show on many levels, I would say. And I think we don't get a lot of overhead shots like that. I mean, it was very creatively done. In this same episode, we're going to get the album cover photo shoot for Aurora. I imagine that the band would be thinking about being iconic on this day. Like they'd be showing up trying to look a specific way, whether or not they normally look that way. So how did you approach something like this, knowing it was maybe sort of a meta day for them?
It was, and unfortunately, that day was literally like one of the coldest days ever, and there was like hail and like it was the desert, so it was supposed to be like this warm wind and this very sort of sexy looking album cover, and it was freezing and awful and windy and cold, and everybody was miserable. And I had built this dress. I had seen a photo of Stevie Nicks in this white, beautiful, flowing dress that I forget the photographer, but I used that as like a template, and we made this beautiful dress and so many incarnations of it. It took us so long to build, and then it was freezing, and we put a coat over it, like we put it like a white fur coat because it was so cold. So that was like a big womp womp, and that happens a lot. And I mean, the guys were troopers, but boy, it was cold. It was cold, and it was not, some shoots are really easy, and some are just more difficult, and everyone pivots, and it still looked great. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I felt that the dress didn't get the screen time it deserved.
Does it still exist somewhere?
You
Is it
know,
in some sort of storage closet
maybe in
somewhere?
some sort of storage facility somewhere. I don't know. I wish I would have kept it. Maybe
I
I
hope
know
you
that
get to
the
reunite
actors
with
took
it.
a few pieces of the clothing, but I don't know where that dress is.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Dress.
Well, episode 7, She's Gone, was shot in Greece. So we're going to get a lot of new characters. They need to represent a different culture during the same time period. What influenced or inspired you in creating those looks?
I again, I had a lot of boards, and I will preface this episode by saying it was the last episode we shot. I had been working on the movie for almost 2 years. It was our very last episode, and we were ending in Greece, where I was going to take a big vacation with my husband, and I broke my ankle really badly 4 days before we started shooting the episode in Greece. And we were shooting on a mountaintop with the wedding, and I had to get to set by mule because I couldn't walk. But I was a trooper. I stuck it out. I had like a wheelchair. So that was like not that should have been the most fun episode, and we should have ended on such a high note. And it was such a bummer for me. But again, I can definitely shout orders from a wheelchair. And so but the thing about the Grease episode is that we also shot like all of those underground scenes, like the roller disco, the clubs, like, so we had so many people, so many fittings, so many background, that whole entire group of Greek characters. So it was a lot. It really tested me. And I did it, whatever. I was like a wounded warrior crossing the finish line on that one. Like,
I've been starting to see some photos come through. I had somebody send me a photo of a mule going up a stair, like a narrow alleyway with stairs with a sofa on its back.
well, that would have been
So
me. I would have been the sofa. No, because we were shooting on Hydra, which is an island that doesn't have any cars. So there was no, I mean, everything's steps. So I had no way of getting around. I couldn't even use my wheelchair. So
unbelievable.
yeah.
Well, one episode, I just wanted to shout out a look that I definitely noticed, and I just wanted to say thank you for putting this in there. So, episode 8 looks like we made it. It's for sure my favorite fashion. Well, I don't know if I should say that because there's some great fashion moments in the show, but there's this outfit you put on Suki Waterhouse as Karen. We see it, I think, just for like maybe a moment in a bus party scene. She's in this stunning black sparkly catsuit dancing, and I was like, "Wow, Suki Waterhouse in this outfit." I don't know if she also wore it on stage as well, but I couldn't not see how gorgeous this was. So I just wanted to say thank you for the vision that you had.
Well, I think she had a lot of sparkly outfits. I don't know which one exactly that was, because she had so many. And again, like there were a lot of quick scenes, and then there were a lot of scenes that got cut, like in the finals. Like there were a lot of quick takes of either concert shows or parties or buses. And so I don't know exactly what that was, but I loved all of her outfits. And that was actually another thing that Checo, our cinematographer, told me early on. I had her in a lot of black and a lot of sort of black leather. And the very first little concert we did when she was playing with the other band in episode 1, like the stoner band, she was in black, and he called me over and he's like, look through the lens. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, she is against a black drape. She is a floating head. She cannot be wearing black. And I was like, ugh. So I went and found like a sparkly scarf and threw it around her. So after that, everything that she had, because she was off to the side, everything we put had sparkles on it so the light would pick it up so she wouldn't disappear off to the side of the stage. So it's things like that, like I'm saying, like working together with other departments because I just didn't even think about it. And he, he showed me the light.
Yeah, what an important note and detail to have so that you can make the correction you need. There's another piece that I absolutely have to mention here. In episode 10, Rock and Roll Suicide, for so much of that episode, we're seeing the concert at Soldier Field, and we see that white dress that Daisy is wearing for that whole concert. And then we get this amazing image at the start of the concert where she raises up her arms and you can just see the dress spread out from under her arms. And it's just fabulous,
So
unforgettable.
that's a particular night where it worked in our favor. There was a hurricane coming and it was hot and there was a wind blowing. Usually like it's dead and humid and no wind, and the wind came and just it was perfect. It was magic. Everyone gasped when it happened because it just ended up being so perfect. But that it's actually not white, it's gold. And the reason we chose that, I got a call from Riley one day and she said, I'm driving to work and I'm listening to Gold Dust Woman, and that's what we should do for the final concert. And because we had been talking about it, she kept saying, like, what are we doing for the final concert? And I kept saying, I don't know, I'm thinking about it. Like I said, because I made all these boards, and that was the one thing I just didn't know what would be like the finale. I couldn't put my finger on it. And I was like, that's it, Gold Dust Woman. So then I had like my big Gold Dust Woman board. And then that being said, I think I made five different Gold Dust Woman dresses. And my poor long-suffering seamstress Rosa, she kept making these dresses and we're like, not right. And then Rosa, I think she was tired of making them. She found this Halston cape and she sent me the link and she goes, this is a vintage Halston cape. This is what you should do. She's probably like, leave me alone with this stupid, stupid gold outfit. And so we bought it and then it was a cape. And then we were like, we got to cut it down the middle. I mean, it was a dress. So it looked like a giant tent. It wasn't a cape. It wasn't open. And so we cut it in the fitting room. I'm like, oh, this better work because this is really expensive. So, and it looked great. And then we put this gold 1930s crocheted dress under it. And it was Gold Dust Woman. Like it worked. And it was fully Riley's vision of what she wanted the end to look like. It
And
was
then that pose she hits. So it sounds, was that a happy accident then?
happy accident. Just like as it
My
was freezing
goodness.
cold in the desert when we were shooting, this was just, she just opened her arms and this hot wind came. And again, had we been shooting and it was freezing and frigid and stiff, she would have been kind of wrapped up in that cape. And it was just the perfect storm, so to speak.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think you would have planned this forever to make that happen. I mean, that is so special, such an
Yeah.
iconic moment from the show that I think they slowed it down in the
Maybe. I don't know.
replay.
Like I said, everybody, the producers, everybody watching the monitors, because we didn't have wind like fans or anything. It just happened. And then, and,
Everybody's like,
and the way it was lit, the way Jeff Cutter had lit it, like it was just perfect. It was just like the perfect moment for the ending of that, the culmination of their whole journey. So I felt like I was definitely the rock gods were looking down on us.
you sure were. I wanted to ask also, we see some different moms represented on screen. We see Daisy's mom for a bit. We see Billy and Graham's mom. We see Camilla's mom. They get a fair amount of screen time. When they're from a different generation. So what were you looking at for them in terms of inspiration?
I didn't have as many boards for the moms. I really wanted to kind of talk to them about their backstory, who they felt they were, who they wanted their children to become. Um, Lynn Downey, who plays Billy and Graham's mom, she was really lovely. She had a lot of changes, so we really worked together. We had a really, really nice collaboration of coming up with outfits, and there was a lot of, they all were. They were I have to say, every single person in that cast was a joy to work with and really collaborative and really had great ideas. And it just makes my job so much more fun to have to work with people who really are just want to hit the ball back and want to have a conversation about the costumes and have great ideas. And it's what I love to do. I've been doing this so long now, and sometimes you just get this gift of a show. And I loved every minute of it. Loved everybody who worked on it. and we were all very sad when it ended.
Yeah, this is so special to hear. Are there any other particular costumes that jump to your mind when you think about either the most challenging or the most rewarding moments for you?
I have to say, each and every one of every character I had, a favorite costume. Uh, there was a really great denim leather patchwork coat that a woman named Love Melody made, and she had made jumpsuits for Elvis, who, as the audience may or may not know, is Riley's grandfather. So I felt like that was a really nice way to kind of bring that in. Again, that didn't get as much screen time as I would have wanted. I found this crazy denim patchwork three-piece tuxedo from the 70s that we put on Sebastian for one of the shows, which was amazing. And he also could really rock a fur. He was really, he was doing some crazy stuff. So that was really fun. But I feel like everybody had their own, I liked something about every character. It was really fun for me.
Hmm. You've been able to mention some people along the way, but are there any other particular unsung heroes on this project that you wanted to make sure that you had shouted them out? And it could be by name or by role or
I
just,
think that there were so many unsung heroes, and I had, certainly my crew, really, really worked hard. And I have some people that were stayed with me from the beginning to the end because we lost a lot of people on the way because they either just couldn't handle it or we were shooting in another town or a country. But so I do have, some of my diehard, crew that boy, they stuck with it because it was not an easy show. So that was really great. And obviously my seamstress, who you can tell I adore. Um, yeah, no, so it was, I think every person that worked on that show is an unsung hero as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Well, I really don't know how to phrase a question to end this anymore, given all the chaos that's happened in your industry. But is there any other projects that you want to shout out here or draw our attention to? It could be something coming up, something that you've done. What should we know about? What should
I
we look
will be
for?
honest, it's been a really, really, really tough time
Mhm.
in the industry. And I was so excited because I won the Emmy for Daisy Jones, which was it's such an exciting thing for me after doing this for so long. But then I didn't work for 2 years. So there's something to that is very telling about where the industry is going. But I did luckily get on a movie that I just wrapped. So I was shooting for 7 months in Hungary, Slovakia, Morocco, and the US. And so that was Mattel, Skydance, and Apple's new movie called Matchbox, based on the Matchbox cars. So that was really fun. I was happy to be working, but now I'm back and it's back to the grind, and so many people aren't working, and I'm really hoping that changes and that the industry kind of stays in the US where it should.
Hmm.
A lot of people are suffering, and it's I see it all from all across the boards from all departments. So
Well, first of all, congratulations on the Emmy win. And, it is bleak to consider that after a great success like that, even for you, it's been a challenge to find the work that you needed. So hopefully we'll start to see things trend in the other direction.
yeah, I'm always a glass is half full, so I'm being very, very positive that it will, and everybody will get back to work, and that we can all. I'd love to work with the same crew again. I would love for us all to be everyone kind of scattered, and I haven't seen, the people that I really became such good friends with. So you've just inspired me to maybe do a dinner or meet everybody for drinks or something, so we can get together and rehash because it's nice talking about it after so long.
Podcasts reuniting people since whenever podcasts started. I mean, I'm telling you, your name has been brought up to me many, many, many times by all kinds of people. So I
Well,
think
I
you
hope I answered some questions and hopefully, oh, the other thing I am going to say, because this was really great, and this is something I did on this show. And if you go to my Instagram, I think there's a picture of it. I made paper dolls of all the characters so I could put them all on a board with Velcro so I could move them around. Because if you have 5 people together, you got to make sure that they're not clashing and they're not all wearing blue. So I had boards and boards of paper dolls of just like, and I would move them around like little dolls. I'm like, Billy's here. Daisy's here and got to move them around for different scenes. So that was really fun. That was something that I did on that show, which I am going to be doing now forever.
So many levels to consider with it. And then you get a note from Checo about not being able to see Karen and everything just comes out into the air again.
Paper dolls.
Throw the paper dolls away, start over.
Exactly. Start over and then just like
Back to the
throw some
literal
glitter in
drawing
that
board.
photograph.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Denise, for taking all of this time and talking with me and sharing more information about the process of your work and the costumes for the show.
Oh, I so enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see the rest of the interviews you do because it's fun. It was so much fun. It's good to revisit.
Absolutely. Well, to everybody who is watching this, please go out there. Don't be the muse, be the somebody. Bye, everyone.
Bye.